Welcome back to Donghua Recapped. In today's video I will be recapping Claymore. It begins as a dead body is discovered in a village, leading to the people suspecting that there is a Yoma amongst them, a creature that kills and eats humans. Tensions rise as they blame each other, until the village leader says that a Claymore will be coming, a half-human half-Yoma hybrid warrior. Zaki tells his younger brother Riki about the events, before he runs off to see what the commotion is about. The Claymore strolls towards the city. She is a female as are all the Claymore warriors, and her name is Claire. Her presence stirs up gossip, and she says to the village leader that someone will collect the money unless she dies, suggesting that either her or the Yoma will be defeated. She almost instinctively strikes Riki as he follows her, and he tells her that she doesn't seem different to any other human being, before explaining that his parents were the first victims of the Yoma attacks. He returns home, only to discover his uncle dead and discovering that his brother is a Yoma. He attacks him viciously, but the boy is saved by Claire, who renders the monster armless, and then finishes the job. The village held no sympathy for Riki, sending him away to avoid the risk of him becoming the next monster. He wakes up in a random place, where a man explains that he was brought there by a Claymore. He heads into the woods to find them, thinking it's Claire. However, he instead finds another Claymore who turns into a Yoma and attacks him. Claire comes out, so the Yoma uses Riki as a hostage before attacking her, but she once again dispatches of the monster. She explains that her intention was not to save Riki, but he remains grateful still. He reminds him of herself when she was younger, and was also attacked by Yomas, so she tells him that he can come with her. She kills more Yomas in another town, using all her strength to kill a flying Yoma. She kills a crocodile for food, and they eat it later that night, where he asks lots of questions until she wanders away, meeting Rubel, who is in charge of giving her new missions. He gives her new clothes, and warns her not to become emotionally attached to Riki. Lastly, he gives her a black card before walking off. In the morning they go to another village, once again causing gossip amongst the people. She drops Riki off at an inn, saying that she has to go to find someone. As she leaves, Rubel appears and explains to him that Claymores can turn into full Yomas, and they must be killed once that happens. Claire walks onwards, however Riki is persistent, following her and confronting her about what Rubel said. She tells him that no one can become a Yoma, and then says she is seeking to kill the other Claymore. They were friends, but she is now in danger of turning into a full Yoma, and so she sent a black card to the person she wished to kill her to prevent this, which is Claire. She appears in the distance. Her name is Elena, and she engages in an emotional conversation about the past with her friend, where she begs to die whilst she is human. Riki doesn't want this to happen, but Claire kills Elena and then tells Riki about the tough times they helped each other through. She marks her friend's grave, and after that Rubel says her next destination is Rabona, which is known as the Holy City, so she won't be able to enter without taking a medicine that will eliminate her detecting powers. With this in mind, she travels to the city with Riki, and they head to the baptism chamber, where she tells the guards that they wish to receive baptism, which allows them to enter. Inside, they meet Father Vincent, and during the process she says her god is limped and he recognizes that she is the one he sent for. Night comes and she prepares to leave the hotel, sneaking her way onto the tallest cathedral tower to meet up with Father Vincent in private. He explains that there has been a series of recent killings of workers there. She mentions that the odds are stacked against her this time, and asks him to take Riki in if she were to die. She commences her search, instantly being attacked by a guard who says that she is trespassing. They continue to throw strikes, but she fends them off and escapes. Another pair of guards are killed by a Yoma during the night. Morning comes and the guards who fought Claire enter their room, informing them about the dead bodies and saying they're looking for Claire. They check her eyes, but they aren't silver like a Claymore's eyes, and then Riki defends her, which prompts them to leave the room. However, she tells him not to look to her for kindness. She meets again with Father Vincent, telling him that she believes the Yoma is a voracious eater who is hiding inside the cathedral. She is once again caught at night by the guards, who continue to be naive and attack her. She hears a scream in the distance and runs after it. finding a dead guard as well as being snuck up on by a Yoma. The guards follow her and discover this monster, entering themselves into the battle against it. Their presence is nothing more than a distraction for Claire, who gets impaled by the creature as a result. The Yoma leaves, and they discover that she is still alive, so they reluctantly rescue her. Riki asks if she will be okay, but they're unsure about how to treat her. And then he punches the guard for mocking her, but he hits him too. All hope seems to be lost, but the wiser guard tells them to have faith that she will survive. 2 days later she wakes up, and Riki has been there praying for her the entire time. Father Vincent holds a meeting with all of the priests, saying that there is a Yoma living there. Claire inspects everyone there, although she doesn't have much luck, with Father Vincent being the last one to check. But he isn't a Yoma either. She realizes that it must have hidden itself as one of the corpses in the baptism chamber, where Riki currently is, and he is suddenly attacked by the Yoma, but Claire quickly comes to the rescue, as do the guards. She manages to slice off one of its arms, but the advantage doesn't last long as she is stabbed, and she has to be saved by the guards, who heroically sacrifice themselves to give her the opportunity to cut the other arm off, followed by it being sliced in half. Despite the victory, Claire is very damaged from the battle and asks the guards to kill her to prevent her from becoming a Yoma. Riki desperately hugs her, and his loving words reverse the Yoma effects of the battle as they embrace. Now that the dust has settled, they plan to leave the holy city, as the guard gives Riki his sword. In previous days, a Claymore kills a Yoma. Her name is Teresa, and she warns the village to pay, otherwise the Claymores won't be there to save them in the future. She is commanded by someone called Orsay to head to another village, and he internally monologues that she is the most powerful of the Claymores. Teresa goes to the village and starts slaying Yomas disguised as people, which freaks everyone out. She notices that she has killed 6, which means there is one more, but it doesn't linger for long as she detects it and kills it swiftly. She notices the little girl standing there, and the next day the girl pesters her as the village leader explains that she is an orphan who doesn't speak, and that her guardian was abusing her before they were outed as a Yoma. Despite Teresa warning her, she continues to come close to her, so the Claymore kicks her and leaves the village for the forest. The girl follows her, and as Teresa continues to show no interest in her, bandits attack her, so she cuts one of the men's hands off. And the lead bandit says that Claymores aren't allowed to kill humans, and the others say that she is very attractive, but she shows them her body, which is an instant turn off for them, and they leave. Day comes and the child still follows Teresa, but she jumps down a cliff thinking that the little girl will be discouraged. However, she also jumps down. She experiences a bad fall, and despite wanting to leave, she saves the young child, giving her food to eat and somewhere to bathe. Teresa allows the little girl to come with her on her journeys, and to avoid inconvenience she names her Claire. Teresa tells her that she will be dropping her off at the next town, saying she'll find greater happiness there. Whilst walking at night, Teresa notices that she is being followed by the bandit she injured. He tackles her and promises to strip her of her pride, and then he turns his attention to Claire, who attacked him in defense of the Claymore. She strikes fear into him, which makes him run away. Claire hugs her and talks for the first time, making Teresa cry. She buys the young girl some new clothes, and after slaying the Yoma in the town, she asks if they will take Claire in, which makes her undress and ask to stay with her. But Teresa remains strong and gets ready to leave on her own. She walks away but notices bandits on horses going to the village, so she rushes back there only to find all the houses on fire. The people are slaughtered, and Claire is found by the one-handed bandit. They mock Teresa because she is bound by rules to not kill humans, but she spots Claire being dragged, and so she strikes the bandit, cutting his hand off as well as slicing him in half before promising to kill every last one of them. The lead bandit swings his unique falcon sword around. However, little effort is needed as she kills him also, and then turns her attention on to the rest of the bandits. Orsay stands on a rooftop and saw everything that happened, meaning Teresa will have to be penalized for breaking the laws. She stands between 5 Claymores, and Claire painfully cries out to her. Strangely, all of the armed Claymores are inflicted with injuries, although they aren't serious, and Teresa says she has no intention of dying yet. She explains to Orsay that she will try to live for Claire's sake. He tells her that she'll regret it, but she carries on walking anyway. One of the towns have been completely run down with Yoma, and in that town 2 Claymores called Sophia and Noelle have slaughtered many of the monsters residing there, and a 3rd Claymore makes her way from the distance. Her name is Irene, and she breaks the tension that is building between them, informing them that they have been ordered to take down number 1 in the organization. They think that they're missing the 4th ranked Claymore, but Irene says that she isn't number 2 anymore and instead 3rd ranked. On cue, a girl called Priscilla clumsily walks out and is the novice that they were speaking of. Noelle isn't satisfied and goes to slay her, but she starts crying and Noelle notices just how many Yoma she killed. Despite wanting to relax in the town, Teresa has to battle another Yoma that is plaguing it, easily defeating it. Everyone praises her for saving them and they agree to give them accommodation. They share a wholesome moment in the inn. However, the group of Claymores enter the town and quickly find the place they're staying at. Irene and Teresa come face to face, and a fight ensues between the pair whilst Noelle and Sophia find their way in. Teresa meets Priscilla for the first time, and they prepare to fight one-on-one. The novice condemns her for killing humans, and then they engage in a sword fight. Despite her confidence, Teresa is surprised by just how good she is as the inexperienced warrior gains the upper hand. Irene explains that Priscilla's ability to fight without any Yoma aura is what makes her the hardest opponent. However, Teresa's natural fighting skills are overall better, which is displayed as she starts winning the match, and so the other warriors join in the fight, surrounding her and summoning their maximum power levels. But her defensive abilities make it difficult to get a clean strike. She manages to cut Irene, as well as Noelle and Sophia, and whilst Irene is badly hurt, she realizes that Teresa hasn't even had to use her Yoma powers yet. Priscilla fears for her life, but Teresa spares her and takes Claire with her away from the battleground. Priscilla uncontrollably rages about Teresa, and goes back to fight her once more. Teresa warns her that she'll become a Yoma permanently if she uses too much Yoma power, but she attacks her anyway, so Teresa finally uses her Yoma powers too. And in the distance of the fight, Irene senses that one of their auras is far stronger. It is Priscilla who holds the stronger aura, but it proves to be ineffective against Teresa's controlled fighting style. Even though she was warned multiple times, the novice exceeds her Yoma limit and begs Teresa to help her return to normal, but it is impossible, so they agree that beheading her will be the best option. However, she suddenly turns the tables, cutting her hands off and decapitating the greatest warrior. Priscilla turns into an awakened being, something that transcends Yoma. Irene attacks her, but her arm is cut off, whilst Noelle and Sophia are quickly murdered by the monster, followed by Irene, who suffers the same fate. Unexpectedly, Priscilla spares Claire, and she has a moment with her fallen mother figure. She walks through the town with Teresa's head in hand, finding Orsay and telling him to put her blood and flesh inside of her. In the present day, 3 new Claymores, Maria, Queenie, and an unnamed person head to the town Claire is at. Despite her successful attempts at killing the Yoma, she is condemned for not following the orders she was given to await their arrival. Rubel tells her to stop putting herself in such danger, since voracious eaters are stronger than normal Yoma. He explains that the true voracious eaters are also known as awakened beings, which gives her flashbacks of Priscilla, and he asks her if she wants revenge, telling her that she isn't one of this era's heroes. However, he agrees to have her on the team hunting awakened beings. She is the last to arrive to the members' meeting, attacking one of them for mocking her and Raki. Miria commands members Helen and Deneve to disengage, and then they compare their rank and experience level. Miria is ranked number 6, Deneve is ranked number 15, Helen is ranked 22, whilst Claire is ranked number 47. Helen explains to Raki that there are 47 territories in their continent, with 1 Claymore being assigned to each continent, which means that Claire is the weakest ranked Claymore. She leaves Raki behind, saying that she will return in a week, and then the team walks through the woods, reaching a cave where Miria says she wants to fight Claire to test her skills. also saying that she sensed Claire's powers to be far beyond the general consensus. The match is competitive until Miria knocks the sword out of her hand, and then Claire passes out from fatigue. They continue walking, being approached by an unknown man who says he was awaiting their arrival. However, Miria attacks as she senses his Yoma power, and he is in fact the awakened being they were sent to kill. And the intel completely underestimated the power of the creature, which strikes Miria. A warrior named Galatea is summoned by a man in a robe called Ermita, who commands her to sense what lies beyond the mountains. She senses the power of the awakened being, who quickly dispatches Deneve. And then Claire protects Helen from becoming the next victim, but is smashed against the wall for her troubles. Helen extends her arms to cut his arms off, but they grow back in an instant. Luckily, Deneve is still alive and regenerates her lost limb. And then Claire rises up again. They are confused as to how the awakened being is male, and Miria explains that there used to be male fighters too. However, they were too trigger-happy with their Yoma. The male awakened being interrupts her, saying that she got something wrong, and then rushing toward them, stabbing both Deneve and Claire, followed by Helen, which leaves only Miria, who speaks with the monster as he explains that he was once a male fighter but exceeded his Yoma power limit. Whilst this is happening, Riki is still at the inn, and he tells the innkeeper that Claire went up the mountain, and he says that a few Claymores went up there a while back but never returned. Meanwhile, the monster continues to attack Miria as she is checking up on the injured warriors, and she uses her afterimage powers to trick the monster and gather them up together. She also utilizes it to gain the upper hand in the battle, slashing his limbs and using her Yoma power. Claire explains that Miria is cautious with the amount of power she uses, because if she uses too much then she will exceed her limit. But Helen says that she doesn't know what she is talking about. The awakened being pins Miria up against the wall, brutally stabbing her with his tongue, causing Claire to rise up and say that she has faced a superior opponent in the past. He notices her but is unable to hit her. She is able to suppress her Yoma aura to a crazy extent, and then begins cutting his limbs off. However, he exposes a hole in her defense, sending her flying as Miria says she has lots of training to do still. The pair of warriors team up to launch one last deadly attack on the monster, finally killing him. The warriors talk after the battle, realizing that they have all used their Yoma aura to an extraordinary extent, suggesting that they have been sent on a suicide mission. Even Miria almost became an awakened being, recalling a past event when she had to kill her friend who had turned. And then she explains that she is a nuisance to the organization since she is always snooping around to find any corrupt mishaps they have participated in. She says that they are essentially already awakened beings, perfectly timing Devine's rise up as she purposefully exceeds her limit to fully regenerate. Helen and Claire prepare to kill her if she fully turns. However, she doesn't fully awaken and is still a Claymore. Galatea, the warrior who watched from afar, senses that Claire is able to sense her presence, before the man in the robe says she will likely cross swords with them soon. Miria tells the other warriors to avoid the top 5 Claymores: Alicia, Beth, Galatea, Ophelia, and Rafaela. Ophelia particularly loves to hunt awakened beings, so she specifically warns them about her, and then they swear that they will all meet again in the future. Rubel gives Claire another mission to fight awakened beings, and so she heads to the location after telling Riki to stay behind once again. She learns that it is only her and one more Claymore who has been assigned the mission. Suddenly, the unknown warrior grabs her and says she smells like an awakened being, with Riki coming to her defense. This is when Claire realizes just who she is. Number 4. Ophelia. Her instincts kick in as she has to engage in a duel with the top 5 opponent, leading to her legs being chopped off as Ophelia tells her to reattach them to be able to stop the fight between her and the inexperienced Riki. The cruel warrior slashes Riki as Claire tries to complete her daunting task, and then a confused little girl appears. However, she is actually the monster in disguise and demands to have the boy, destroying the town in the process. But they're all still in fine condition, so Ophelia unapologetically gives Riki to the creature, and his fate seems sealed. But then Claire suddenly transforms into an awakened being herself to save him. charging at the beast and successfully rescuing him before Ophelia realizes that Claire is awakened, which means she has two opponents instead of one, but Claire uses all her power to run away from the dangerous warrior, who has to first deal with the being she was assigned to kill. Her cockiness is her demise as she is trapped by the monster, but he uses deception to get one up on the awakened being and easily kill it. During a quick stop at the forest, Raki begs to stay with Claire until she suddenly kisses him on the lips, promising that she will not die and will find him again, so he reluctantly agrees to part ways, swearing that he will protect her in the future before walking into the forest. She runs off into the distance with Ophelia right behind her. They eventually face off, engaging in a duel as Ophelia has to use some Yoma power, and then slashes one of Claire's shoulders, followed by the other one. She shows her opponent her rippling sword technique, and Claire decides to charge in, but it proves to be a mistake as her arm is cut off. Ophelia then imposes a slice that makes her fall off the cliff. Miraculously, she is still alive, but her opponent appears once more, preventing her from reattaching her arm and completely destroying it. Desperately, Claire goes on the offensive but is unable to strike Ophelia, who cuts Claire again, rendering her unable to carry her sword. Just as Ophelia goes to deliver the finishing blow, she is saved by a woman in a black robe who Ophelia tries to slice, but all of her attacks just bounce off her before she unleashes a barrage of invisible sword attacks that all hit the number 4 ranked warrior. Claire suddenly realizes who it is, none other than Irene, the warrior who was sent to kill Teresa. When she wakes up, she realizes that her right arm is completely gone and Irene has to put her in her place as she still wants to fight rather than recover. After Claire eats, they engage in another conversation where Irene tells her to forget about getting revenge for Teresa because Priscilla has grown too powerful. But Claire explains she is so dedicated because Teresa was everything to her. Irene passes her sword, saying that she will teach her. Ophelia is still alive, however she is badly injured, yet she still swears to get Irene and Claire, eventually transforming into an awakened being herself. Training begins for Claire, who is learning the quick sword technique, and her mentor tells her that she must resist the temptation of using Yoma power. They sit round a fire, and Irene says that despite Teresa's death being Claire's fault, it was also the time she spent with the little girl that made her the happiest prior to her death. Relentlessly, she tells her that her ability to do the quick sword technique is useless, and unexpectedly cuts off her own only remaining arm, giving it to Claire so that she can use the technique, and she reluctantly accepts it. As they part ways, Irene comes in contact with number 5 ranked Rafaela, who says she has been trying to find her for a long time. Meanwhile, Claire is once again confronted by the now awakened Ophelia. She shows improved strength and speed as they engage in another battle, but is still flung into the lake where Ophelia finally realizes she has become an awakened being, causing her to freak out. She mentions that she only wanted to avenge her brother, who was killed by Priscilla, and this catches Claire's attention as she charges at the creature, but she has not adjusted to Irene's arm enough to be able to finish the job at that very moment, giving Ophelia an opportunity to turn into a mermaid. Claire starts doing damage to the body of the awakened being, but she is then impaled, so she has to struggle to be released. Once again ferociously tear through the awakened being's body before finishing off the mermaid form that Ophelia has taken, killing her once and for all. Rubel establishes that Ophelia was found dead as an awakened being, and that Claire has been missing for 3 months, so Galatea is summoned to find the missing warrior. Claire disguises herself and looks for Raki in a nearby village, where she learns that there are claymores and a huge Yoma nearby. She spots the aforementioned warriors walking past, but they walk out of the village and towards the mountains, whilst Claire finds a pair of children who say that they saw Raki about 10 days ago. Suddenly, an injured Claymore stumbles out. She is bleeding profusely, and tells Claire that all the other warriors are alive but have been captured by an awakened being. She dies, so Claire heads towards the mountains, where the Claymores are being tortured into also becoming awakened beings. They even killed one of them through the torture. The third Claymore starts to turn into a monster, eventually completing her transformation. and she engages in a fight with the awakened being holding her captive, but he determines that she isn't strong enough, which gets her killed. Claire is told not to go into the mountains by a group of men, but she detects that they're yomas and kills them instantly, and then has to fend off another group of the monsters as she enters the cave. The huge awakened being called Doff rises up, facing off with Claire, who is much better than they were expecting. However, he still gets the upper hand against her, and just as it looks like she will die, Galatea arrives and retrieves Claire. The awakened being doesn't allow this and prevents them from leaving, so Galatea begins to fight with him, realizing that his outer skin is incredibly tough, but she still manages to find some weak spots and slices through them. The lady awakened being, Reeful, comes out and says that he is useless, telling him that she will leave him if he can't beat Galatea, so he ups his game, being much more effective with his attacks as well as getting a damaging blow-off on her. Claire exceeds her Yoma limit in order to save her fellow warrior, and she almost turns into a monster, but Galatea saves her with her synchronicity powers. Reeful says that she has been amassing a collection of subordinates, including the one they were fighting, and she also mentions Priscilla, so Claire demands to know where she is, initiating a battle where Claire thinks she has the advantage, but Galatea stops her from throwing an attack since she is on the edge of transforming into one of them. Claire looks for the number 9 ranked warrior, Jean. However, upon finding her, she realizes that she has transformed. Despite this, her mind is somehow still human, so Claire tells her that there is still a chance for her to revert back. Utilizing the method that Galatea used to save her, Jean reverts back to human form, badly beating from holding the awakened beings off. Galatea is relieved when Jean and Claire return, allowing them to properly engage in combat with the beast standing before them. Galatea and Claire distract him, striking him from 2 different directions, giving Jean the opportunity to almost kill him with her most mighty strike, but he reacts just in time to defend against it. The awakened beings determine that it's time to end the match, and they try telling Claire that their goal isn't to kill them. However, the Claymores remain resilient and Claire masters the quick sword technique, using it on the creature so that Jean can use her drill sword technique to pierce through the awakened being. But she gets entangled in the process by Reeful, who intervenes and says that she won't allow them to kill Doff. And then Claire slices her, but it isn't very effective as she turns into a huge creature that towers above them. She tells them about the man to the north, who is called the Silver King Isley, offering them to join her in order to defeat him before flying away. Galatea refocuses her attention to her primary mission, telling Claire that she has been ordered to take her back to the organization. Jean takes Claire's side though, so Galatea backs down and leaves them alone, and Jean tells Claire that she wants to repay her in any way possible for saving her life, but Claire says that she already has, since she wasn't able to use the quick sword technique until she saw her in such a vulnerable position. Suddenly, Rafaela and Rubel show up and he tells them that they almost beheaded Galatea for abandoning her mission, but they spared her since she is a useful asset. He tasks Claire with killing multiple awakened beings that have recently caused havoc, and he also says that Raki is headed north, which is where the mission is taking place. Jean insists that she also comes, and when they get there she is greeted by Helen and Deneve. After a brief conflict, Flora arrives, claiming that she is ranked 8th, but she isn't the leader since Miria is also there. She gives an overview of the mission, and some of the members cause an uproar about there being multiple awakened beings. However, number 11 ranked Undine tells them to pull themselves together. We also meet the number 13 ranked Veronica, and then Miria puts them into groups of 5, led respectively by Flora, Jean, Undine, Veronica and Miria. Once they're all put into teams, the 4 half-awakened beings reunite, and they learn that Jean is also in the same situation as they are. Miria pulls no punches, determining that the probability of them succeeding in this operation is 0%, revealing that the purpose behind it is to combat Isley, the King of the North, who has brought the awakened beings together. However, they all point out that there is no chance they would win, and Miria says that the organization is likely doing it as a way to distract him enough to enforce a counterattack. Whilst this meeting is occurring, 3 of the awakened beings attack the nearby town, so the fighters have to go to the defense of the townspeople. attacking them accordingly and splitting intro groups to focus on them separately. Jean's team have nearly been wiped out already, and the other fighters back her up. Undine and Flora's teams attack the turtle-like awakened being, with Undine and Flora then attacking it individually. They prove to be formidable opponents, evading the creature's attacks. However, Undine's recklessness causes her to inflict damage on herself, and he adds more to it with his own attacks. Claire and Deneve charge in on their own accord, striking the creature, but he gains control of them too, so they unleash their Yoma power to the point they're awakened. Meanwhile, Veronica and Cynthia assist Jean to the best of their ability, delivering the final blow to defeat the awakened being opponent they were put up against. Claire and Deneve reverse the effects of their awakening, unleashing a surge of strikes, and Deneve deceives the monster to land a brutal blow to its neck, and then Undine joins in, using her strength to behead him, but he remains alive and able to control their Yoma powers, so they have to cut him into tiny pieces, finally finishing the job. Despite the brutality of the battles, everyone was able to survive. Riki walks through the land, spotting someone in the distance who is almost crushed by a piece of falling wall, but he saves them just in time. He instantly finds her very attractive, and the girl reveals her name to be Priscilla. In the distance walks a man who says that he is her caretaker. He is Isley, and he asks if Riki can come with them to keep her company. He agrees to do so, and they walk on together. They talk about the Claymores, and Riki lets slip that her name is Claire before saying that he plans to protect her at all costs. Isley takes his sword and teaches him a few things. As the young boy says that he wishes to learn, Deneve walks in where Undine is changing her clothes, asking why she has two different swords. Undine keeps up her tough act, but Deneve continues to chip away at her, asking more personal questions before finding her on the floor crying. She figures out that Undine's friend died, so she took her sword to fight for her glory, and then Deneve tears down Undine's aggressive shell as they reconcile. Flora meets Claire outside, asking about her replaced arm and then telling her that she is aware of Irene and the quick sword technique she possessed. Jean interrupts them as things get heated, and upon threat of being removed from the mission, Claire reveals that Irene gave her the arm, as well as revealing her that her main goal is to slay Priscilla, so they all promise to survive the battle together. In the forest, Isley finds Lieutenant Rigaldo and instructs him to assemble the army because he plans to destroy the town they're heading to. Isley, Priscilla and Riki continue their journey, whilst the Claymores prepare for the army of awakened beings heading towards them. Led by Rigaldo, the monsters march into the town, killing some of the lower-ranked Claymores. However, they have some success of their own as they fight back. They team up to defeat each of the awakened beings they're burdened by, and Rigaldo watches on as the Claymores start to gain an advantage, so he goes down the mountain to assist in the battle. Riki notices that Priscilla is gone and then hears a scream. She runs, shouting about a monster, and she leads him into a cave where he witnesses her eating a human. Suddenly, all of the awakened beings disperse from the current battle place, and Rigaldo makes his presence known as he easily defeats Veronica, followed by Undine, both of which are high-ranking Claymores. Upon discovering that Priscilla is a Yoma, Riki goes to kill her, but he is too sympathetic to do so. Isley walks in, and Riki begs her to stop eating the human's innards. Rigaldo turns his attention to Jean, dodging her drill sword attack, and ultimately striking her. This ignites a fire inside of Claire, who charges at the beast, but she is of little concern to him as he instead incapacitates Flora by cutting her in half, and then turns his attention to the last of the leaders, Miria. Claire gets in the middle of this though, attacking the beast as Helen and Deneve follow suit to defend the leader. Isley reveals that Priscilla was a former Claymore, and explains that it's impossible for her to become a human again. He leaves as he mysteriously says that Riki will find out who he is soon enough. The battle with Rigaldo continues, as Deneve is heartbreakingly caught in the crossfires. She lays there, ashamed of herself. Miria battles the beast, but she is barely able to keep up, soon being injured due to using her phantom afterimage ability too much. As he is walking with his newfound companions, Riki is approached by some men who tell him that there is a huge battle going on right now, and that the Yoma are completely overpowering the Claymores. Priscilla tries to stop Raki from leaving her. However, his loyalty for Claire is too strong, and so he lets go and makes his own way there. Miria endures an even bigger blow from the beast, and she only just escapes death because of Claire coming to her defense and cuts off Rigaldo's arm. He is inconvenienced by this as Claire continues to attack him, and Helen cuts his arm into pieces to further weaken him. Claire continues to be offensive, giving him the opportunity to evade all of her attacks, and Helen joins in the fight upon seeing her friend not having any luck, but she doesn't have any luck either. Claire's persistence and nuanced skills are particularly interesting to Rigaldo, who admires them and rejoices because he hasn't had such a foe since he was defeated by Isley. Raki sees the terrible state that the town is in. Meanwhile, the ferociousness of the battle increases as they start even doing damage to the surrounding buildings whilst throwing strikes. Raki walks into the battle zone, and Helen brings him to the place where all the injured warriors are. They recognize him as Claire's friend, and he goes outside to see her facing off with Rigaldo, realizing that she could soon become an awakened being. Just as things look bleak with Rigaldo's victory surely on the horizon, Claire rises up once again with a fire burning in her heart as she is determined to avenge her fallen friends. She summons even more power, coming dangerously close to the point of irreversible awakening, but it pays off as she slices Rigaldo into many different pieces. Everyone is ecstatic about her victory, and surprisingly Jean is still alive. Priscilla is extremely fearful of Claire as she senses that she won the fight, but still she runs towards the town. Despite the win, Claire admits that her body is no longer under her control since she used so much Yoma power, so she requests that Helen decapitate her before anything bad can happen. Priscilla recognizes Claire's as Teresa's, and Claire begins to sense Priscilla, which makes her Yoma powers grow exponentially, and then Priscilla transforms into her fully awakened self, setting out to find her. Given the intriguing nature of the conflict, Rubel dispatches Galatea to see what is happening. Meanwhile, everyone's number one priority is to find where Claire went, and Devine takes Undine's sword as a sign of respect as she goes to find her friend along with the others. They run into Galatea, who warns them that Claire's opponent is like no other monster they have ever fought before, revealing her name to them. Raki cries as he fears he was all talk and no action, but seeing Jean leave to save Claire encourages him to do the same. In the midst of the fiery volcano, Priscilla is standing there, as is Claire, and they're prepared to fight. The anticipated battle commences, with Priscilla gaining the early momentum. Isley watches from afar as Miria, Helen and Deneve run towards the battle. Miria explains that the reason Claire is so much better than her ranking suggests is because inside of her is Teresa, who Priscilla believes she is currently fighting. Raki and Jean continue traveling, confiding in each other because they were both saved by Claire. The fight isn't going Claire's way as she is outclassed by Priscilla, but the mere mention of Teresa's name allows Claire to regain another sum of power, but her recklessness gets her impaled onto her horn. Following this, she goes to hit her once more to finish the job, but Miria, Deneve and Helen arrive to also fight against Priscilla. Their best efforts aren't much use though, and she views them as the Yoma who killed her family, enraging her. During these events, Jean carries Raki toward the battle at lightning speed. Isley proclaims Priscilla to be the greatest Yoma, as she transforms into her most powerful form and attacks the three warriors, even grasping Miria in her hand and inflicting wounds on both Helen and Deneve. Claire realizes that she has to kill Priscilla, otherwise everything she has done will be in vain, so she begins to awaken once more, just in time for Jean and Raki to witness as they run in. With the latter realizing that the one-horned monster is Priscilla, they finally begin combat again, hurling huge attacks towards one another and proving to be the very best fighters from their respective side. But then Priscilla catches Claire, realizing that she isn't Teresa but continuing to throw brutal strikes because she smells similar. And just as it looks like Claire will lose, she rises up again and slices her opponent up. Priscilla falls and becomes overwhelmed with fear, becoming her normal self as Claire prepares to kill her off. But suddenly Raki shouts out her to stop her. He stands between the combatants, pleading with his unrecognizable friend to spare Priscilla's life. But it is only when he hugs her that she knows who he is, and she sheds a tear because of the moments they spent together. However, this is not enough to transform her, and she regrettably warns him as she throws another huge strike, which barely misses Riki due to a heroic sacrifice from Jean. Their very first encounter repeats itself, only with Claire being the one in danger of becoming a Yoma, and Jean pleads with her to revert back. The process begins as huge amounts of energy reverberates around them. Finally, Claire returns to her normal self, whilst Jean lays on the floor, having finally repaid the debt that she owed. Claire cries about Jean's death, and then Isley suddenly appears and grabs Priscilla, saying that he has no intentions of the fighting continuing for the time being. Claire visits Jean's grave, saying goodbye for the final time before she declares that she wishes to leave the organization to pursue a life alongside Riki. And Miria, Deneve and Helen are all on the same wavelength of also leaving the organization. But that's where this video ends. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.